Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can also listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And you can always find us at the website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my guest today, and he is Keynon Lake, founder and executive director of My Daddy Taught Me That. And Keynon, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. And that's,
hello.
Okay, great. That's Keynon Lake. I should mention that Keynon is a native of Asheville. I don't get to speak to a lot of natives at Asheville, so that's kind of cool. And he had a dream of playing basketball, which he did in high school, college, and a brief career playing professionally abroad. He then began a career in social work, working for the Buncombe County Health and Human Services. And in 2012, he launched My Daddy Taught Me That movement with a book and by a men's development youth program. He's a public speaker, author, and social worker, community activist, and mentor to youth. He's a proud father, loving son, dedicated to changing the future generation for the better. And he's also a guest now on Blaine's World for the first time. So welcome aboard.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm elated to be here.
Okay, well, very nice to meet you. And Keynon, the question I always start off, so you grew up and lived in the Asheville area. As a kid growing up, did you always know you wanted to be this author, public speaker, head of a nonprofit?
No, not at all. No. So, to give you a little context, growing up in Asheville, my dad and my mom, they were both social workers, and they both worked for the Juvenile Evaluation Center. And so, social work, I guess it's in my blood, but no, I wanted to play in the NBA. I had hoop dreams. My main goal was to, go to the NBA. And then, I was a pretty decent student, high school and college. I was probably a B average student in high school and college. And so, did well and had good grades. But yeah, my main objective was pro basketball. Never wanted to do social work, but God had a different plan on my life. So here we are.
So you played at Asheville High basketball?
Did at Asheville High, graduated from Asheville High, my senior, all through high school.
Right.
Went on and played. My first college was University of Tennessee, Chattanooga.
Okay.
We made it to the Sweet 16 that year. We lost in the Sweet 16, but then I transferred and finished up at North Carolina Central University. So go Eagles, But after graduating with the degree in sports medicine, still was playing basketball and trying to play basketball, and was on a tour, a traveling tour team in Mexico for about 4 months, and then I spent a few months in England and tried out for a couple NBA teams, but like I said, God had a different plan on my life. Basketball wasn't in my cards as far as going to the NBA.
You still play basketball?
No, I'm too old now.
Never.
I thought, it's funny. I thought I was going to be one of these, 70-year-old men still at the Y, still playing at the Y, because I just love the sport that much. But to be quite honest with you, Mr. Blaine, God took my passion, the passion that I had for basketball. And like I said, it was a time when I felt like I would have, if I couldn't play basketball, life itself was over, right? But he took my passion and he transferred it into something else, which is what I'm doing now. And really being able to, trying to not only work and help and support the youth, but, families and people as a whole. So my life has been servitude, and to really be able to try to support and help people. But my focus is youth and young adults.
I'll share a quote with you, which you probably know anyway, but it's one of my favorite quotes, and it's in line with what you just said, word for word. But it was from Shirley Chisholm. You know who she was? She was the first Black woman to ever run for president, first woman to ever run for president. And she had a quote, which reminds me of what you just said. And her quote was, "Service is the rent we pay for living on earth." And isn't that a great quote? But it seems what you're doing. So what got you into this whole service kick? You mentioned your parents were involved in this a little bit. How did you switch from becoming a basketball, a jock, a potential NBA player, to now getting into this whole different realm?
Well, when I graduated, again, going back and forth, I needed a job. And so I came home and, I started working for Buncombe County Health and Human Services. My first job there was an income maintenance caseworker, dealing with Medicaid and stuff like that. And so, I had benefits, I had a job, but even at that point in time, I was still focused and still trying to play pro ball overseas. And so, I had been working that job for about a year, little over a year, and they started mentioning becoming a social worker. They needed more male social
Sure.
workers. I don't have a social work degree. I saw my dad, he was a lead social worker for the state with the juvenile center. And it was like, I don't want to be a social worker. There's no money in social work. And so, but again, God had a different calling. And so what happened, I looked at the registry and I saw that social workers for the county made about $13,000 to $14,000 a year,
Right.
more than what I was making. So I joined and signed up for the wrong reasons. But, it turned out to be the very best job I've ever had in my life. Now, it was a very difficult job, dealing with neglected and abused kids and seeing, kids and families struggling and suffering and, again, neglected and abused kids. It was a very difficult job, but it was able to teach me, mold me, and shape me into the work, which turned out to be my life work. And so it was a true blessing to do that.
How long did you do that for?
Almost 20 years. I was with the county for 19 years. In fact, I just left the county. 2021 was my last year at the county. I was there for 19 years.
Okay, so that's a good run, the county, but that's pretty gutsy move though. So after being in the county for 19, 20 years, you decided to leave. What was the reason?
Well, I was pretty much working 2 full-time jobs. I launched my nonprofit in 2012. And so from 2012 until now, I was working my nonprofit and working with the county. And so, as my nonprofit started growing, 2014, 2016, 2018, folks kept saying, you're going to have to decide sooner or later because your nonprofit is getting too big. You're pretty much, we've had no paid staff until last year. So for 10 years of running a nonprofit, we had no paid staff until last year. So it was just me and a few volunteers doing everything. And so again, opportunity happened in 2021 where it was like, you have an opportunity to run your nonprofit, something that you're truly passionate about, full time. And so I stepped out on faith, to be quite honest. I said, you know what, I got benefits with the county. I got tenure with the county. I'm too young for retirement and I don't have enough years of service to retire, but I'm gonna take a step out on faith. And I think it was the right choice. And God has truly been not only blessing me, but truly blessing our program and the youth that we work with and we deal with.
Like you said, that was quite a step, 20 years in the county. So talk about then, so you launched this in 2012, this nonprofit. What's the name of the organization?
It's called My Daddy Taught Me That.
Okay. And how did you come up with the idea even for that? I just love the title.
So truly, the idea came from the book that I wrote. So the book that I wrote was also titled My Daddy Taught Me That. So let me give a little context about who my dad was. Okay, so my dad was also a native of Asheville, but my dad also played with the original Harlem Globetrotters. So Curly Neal, Meadowlark Lemon, all those guys, Geese, all those guys used to frequent our home. And so, he was really known for basketball, but then he also was known for his community work as well. He was I was blessed to come from a 2-parent home. I had a great mom. My mom is still alive, Robin Lake. Thank you for all what you've done for me. But I had 2 parents. I come from a 2-parent household. And so when my dad passed away in 2010, and when he passed away, I was writing kind of an article to the newspaper to talk about what he meant to my family and the community. I had a good friend who I let proofread everything before I submitted it. And he said, you know what, if you write, a few thousand more words, you'll have a book. So I said, right. Okay. So I thought, one of the things that my dad and now me, we do is we try to do things that help. So the book that I wrote was focusing on men, primarily, right now in this country, we got 15.9 million single families in single parent homes. 84% are headed by single moms. So what that tells us, if we have 10 kids living in a single parent home, 8.5 of those kids have no positive role models in their lives and stuff. And at least that's what the statistics will say. And so, I felt like having the parents that I had, but also having an active dad really meant something. And so why not really start teaching these young men, they're going to be leading households one day too. They're going to be in charge of families. And so why not break the cycle of absent parent homes? Again, I think that's one of the biggest the biggest crooks in our country are broken homes and absent parent homes. And again, in 2023, we know that, homes are not just mom and dad. We got grandparents, we got aunt and uncles and stuff like that. But the focus is about having positive men in the home. So one, our women won't have to bear the brunt of being the care provider, the parent, and do everything and have to wear that burden. But also, so our kids can be better for it. We know the statistics of kids coming from single parent homes. And so my job was at the time to really teach these young men, how to, moral standards, the unwritten rules of being a man in this country, the shoulders that, the burdens that you're gonna have to bear. But then in 2012 also, the pipeline to prison became real. And that's when we started seeing a lot of our youth being targeted and being, sent to prison for whatever reasons. And so the work became, something more than just teaching our kids how to maneuver in society. It became how to survive and how not to get caught up in the penal system, how to avoid drugs, how to make sure that you get out of your community unscathed and not joining gangs and stuff like that. So we do a lot.
The folks you work with are what age range?
So we have grown a lot. So the initial program, which is still the main program, is the ages 12 through 19, grades 6 through 12. So middle and high school kids. In 2014, we were so successful, we started a girls version of the program.
I was just going to ask you.
So
okay.
My sister taught me that as the girls version of the program. Same ages, 12 through 19, and they're a mirror version of the boys program. And in 2018, we started the My Daddy Taught Me That junior program, working with younger men ages 5 through 11.
How many right now, young men and young women, are you reaching?
Oh man, enroll, we got close to 200 kids.
Well, just in the Asheville area?
Yes, sir.
Because I can imagine, just listening to you, I mean, I'm impressed to the extent that, are you finding people elsewhere are looking to emulate this or start programs?
So, one of the things that we do with our program, so we meet our kids 2 to 3 times a week. We have what we call a group or program, right? Men discussion groups. And so like right now, Mondays and Wednesdays are the mandatory days that we have our groups. From 5:30 till about 7:38. We have what we call, we have our program. And so our program consists of, teaching our kids whatever, how to tie a tie. We have STD, STI prevention program. We have guest speakers from the U.S. District Attorney to the Chief of Police, to women, teaching our young men about how to respect women, what that looks like, and what women look for in men. Really being able to talk to our kids about what's happening locally, statewide, nationally, internationally. We have a tutoring program. So really being able to provide our kids, our kids, when they come to our program, we feed them. They get a hot meal, they get a good meal. We have a barber there who cuts their hair. We have clothing. If you can see my stuff, our kids get an opportunity to have our clothing. And so we have a real conducive program to where we're not only working with our youth, we're in the homes and making sure that they have everything they need as far as supports and opportunities. We take 2 to 3 college campus tours per year for our high schoolers to see colleges, experience what colleges are about, and see what that's about. One of the things, to answer your question, when we take every year, we take our biggest trip is our Black History Month trip. So coming in another 3 to 4 weeks, we'll be taking that trip again. We took 50 kids to New Orleans to see the Whitley plantation and go down to see that. We took 50 kids to Kids Across America in Missouri. Really being able to expand their mind. Carolina Panther football games, Charlotte Hornet basketball games. The mindset is if they can see it, they can achieve it. And so, yes, sir, when we go out of town, all our kids have our paraphernalia on. We took 40 kids to Selma, Alabama, where we walked across the Pettus Bridge, shoulder to shoulder with Jesse Jackson. 10 feet in front of us was Hillary Clinton and Cory Booker. So really being able to expose them to different things, get them off this mountain so they can see life outside of Asheville, but also so they can understand that there's more than just, the neighborhoods or the communities in which we grow in, and in some cases are subjected to. These kids go to school, they go home. And so really being able to introduce them and broaden their horizons, expand their mindset.
Where do you meet?
Say that again?
Where do you meet?
Currently, right now, we meet at the Asheville Mall. We have a storefront in the Asheville Mall. However, the great news is in about 6 weeks, the city will be pretty much giving us a space, a building. So the city's going to sell us a building
Wow,
for $1, and we'll be able to have our own space, our own building downtown Asheville.
very exciting.
Yes, sir.
I mean, think about how far you've come then from, when you started this dream. Did you ever get discuss this with your dad before he passed? Did
No,
he
sir.
know this?
He never got a chance to see the fruition, and he's the the foundation behind it all. So
Even your mom must be pretty impressed.
my mom is so proud, and so people ask me all the time, like you said, where'd you get that name from? Well, my dad really taught me that. So taking what he taught me as a young man and trying to implement it and teach these young folks some of the same things.
Talk a little bit about the success stories you've had so far. You're still relatively new, but what's happening with these kids?
Man, so some of the success stories we have, and a lot of people I don't think a lot of people understand the disparities that we're facing in Asheville, North Carolina. So like, for example, we have the fifth largest achievement gap in the nation, and when I talk about the achievement gap, I'm talking about the educational opportunity gap. People call it the opportunity gap as well. And so it's a huge gap academically between our African-American and Black students and our Caucasian and white students. So one of the things that we've done, we actually made national news in 2020, right? When everybody was, doing the virtual learning because of COVID. That summer, when you talk about, some of the highlights and some of the great things that this program has done, that summer, we actually got 20 of our students. We partnered with the Asheville City School Foundation. They provided 4 teachers, who work in the Asheville City School system. Those 4 teachers taught 20 of our kids 3 days a week, 4 hours a day in person. And so the reason that we made national news is because based off of our job training program, we paid those kids $10 an hour for the work that they did throughout the week. And so no one's ever heard of paying kids to go to school.
Right, exactly.
It turned out to be amazing. Those kids learned more in 2.5 months that summer than they did the entire year previous as far as academics. And so that's one thing. What we also have learned is that our program is a year-round program. We don't stop, so we go year-round. So we're in these kids' lives heavily. We know their families, we know the kids, and so one of the things that we get to follow our kids. If a kid starts our program and as a 6th grader, 12 years old, we get to follow that kid for 6 years until they get to be a senior, right? And even after that, in 2018, we started our ambassador program. So all of our youth who pretty much have been in the program 5 years or longer, or who at 19 about to age out, well, you can become an ambassador, because a lot of kids we don't want to leave. And so we have a very, our retention, we have about 85% retention. Kids come, they don't leave, they love what we're doing, especially once they stay in our program for about a year. Once they get in our program and they're in the program consistently for about 10 months to a year, they become part of the family. And it's so now what's happening is all of our younger kids are striving to be ambassadors, because what happens is our ambassadors train our junior program. So it's not me or volunteers running our junior program, it's our ambassadors. And so passing on that leadership to them, look, now it's time for you to step up and become a leader. You're responsible for training our young adults, our juniors. And so it's been a true blessing.
Must be very exciting for you when you see them graduate from the program and then go on to college or go on to other things as well.
Yes, sir.
I mean, and do you still stay in touch with them? Oh
yeah. I mean, like I said, a lot of our college kids, we have had, since the conception of the program, we've had probably, I think I asked this question, I think it was 125 of our youth have went on to college, and they all come back. They all, right now we have a young man, and he's in the military. He's actually at the mall at our program now. He's home for a little break. Whenever he comes home, he stops by. Whenever our college students come home, they're in program, they're still there. They all wanted to start clubs at their prospective colleges. We want to start at My Daddy Taught Me That club here, So the program has been truly a blessing for the community in the whole. You see what's happening with the kids, but what's starting to happen now is just really a blessing. When you talk about, about to assume a building, and then we've had partnerships. So now we have a track team. Let me talk about that. We started in 2021, we started a track team, the My Daddy Taught Me That Lions. So now we're reaching out and have kids in the track team. we're being able to, fill that void. And so the sky's the limits. We still are a true grassroots organization. We do a lot with the little, but it has been very rewarding, but very impactful to the youth that we serve in the community.
And talk about a tribute to your dad, just listening to this, and, boy, I'm proud of it. I just met you now for the first, he must be very proud of it, wherever he is, but that's quite a tribute to him. Talk a little bit about the book then. So if you hold up the book, I think you showed it to me beforehand, but the name of the book is what? The name of the book is What My Daddy Taught Me. My daddy taught me that.
My daddy taught me that.
And the book available, I assume, on Amazon, other places as well?
Yep, Amazon. You can get it off of Amazon. That's probably the best place to get it. It used to be in Barnes and Nobles. I'm not sure if they still carry it in Barnes and Nobles, or at least you can order it from Barnes and Nobles. But it's been several years, so I'm not sure if they still have it.
And talk about writing a book. What drove you to do that?
To be honest, again, the passion to really, when my father passed away, I think it was therapy, to be quite honest. It was therapy to get it out on paper and really just talk about, what he meant to me. And then in the process, as a social worker, being able to see families and see, and this is what really, really one of the things that did it. When you look at the statistics, particularly when you're talking about absent parent homes, the statistics will have you believe that this is a Black and brown problem, right? That only Black men are not in the homes with their children. That is the furthest thing from the truth. It's a human problem. Working as a social worker here in Asheville, North Carolina, first of all, African Americans only make up 7% of the population. We have 90,000 people in Asheville. We only make up 7% of the population. And so when I was a social worker, I was all around the county, Black Mountain, Barnesville, Sandy Mush, Alexander, you name it. And I saw the same things. It didn't matter if I was in the hood or the trailer park. What I saw was families with no positive men in the household. And so it was an issue for me. Like, again, I had great parents, and I know I was blessed, and I know everybody, families grow up differently. Families have different supports, access, different things. But again, it was like, I'm not a Bible thumper. I don't beat Jesus over the head with anybody like that. But if, we want to live according to that law, men are supposed to be the head of the household. Well, how are you going to be the head of the household if you're not in the household? Not only that, but if you're, and it's not even so much the head of the household, that's very important, but you're supposed to be the leader of that family. How are you going to lead a family when you're not in the house? And so, or you're not even around the family. Again, things happen. I have a 7-year-old, and me and my ex-wife, we're divorced. We're not together anymore. However, I'm with my child 6 days a week, so I make sure that I either see her, have her, I'm very, very involved in her life. And so, you don't necessarily have to be in the home, because again, sometimes, relationships don't work. But if you're not taking care of your family, primarily your child, to me, that's a problem. God gave us that responsibility and a blessing. And so when you're not taking care of your child, to me, that's an issue.
Talk about, if you would, the book or even the program itself. Let me put it on the spot. I didn't tell you that I was going to ask you this, but tell me one thing that your dad taught you.
He taught me a lot. I mean, one of the things he taught me
more than one thing.
One of the things that I tell everybody, though, when they say, "What does your dad teach you?" He taught me love. He taught me how to be a man without the stereotypes of men don't cry, or men carry themselves. No, he taught me it's okay to cry, son. It's okay to show your emotions. It's okay to show people that you feel and that you care. And so, one of the things that I tell everybody is that my father taught me love. He taught me how to love people. He taught me how to love myself. He instilled pride in me, and the wherewithal to walk with my head high and know that, as long as you're doing the best that you can, you're treating people the way you want to be treated, everything else will fall into place and you'll do well. The last thing that he taught me, and this is a phrase that I tell all of my youth, you never run from your problems, you run towards them.
So that's a great lesson. In writing the book, what was it like to all of a sudden then to have to put all these ideas in writing? What was that process like?
It was good, you know, and since then I've actually started my second book, and I found it's a lot harder to write my second one than my first. You know, the first one, again, ideas are just flowing. You know, I mean, I would literally wake up in the middle of the night out of a dead sleep, and it's like it happened so much. The first couple of times I didn't write it down, and I lost the thought or the idea. So I learned, you know, when those things happen, you got to write that stuff down immediately, right? Since I started writing the second book, it's been a little bit more difficult, but probably too because I'm a lot more busier as well. I have a daughter, so kind of got a lot more on my plate. But I'm not. I was, you know, who would have ever thought in a million years I would have wrote a book? You know, that's not what I did. That's not what I do. But you know, I wrote the book, and then also not only did I write the book probably should have been edited a whole lot better. But I wanted all of it to be from me as a tome to him. You know, and so you know, you lose a little bit of the audience when the book is not written according to, you know, the way it needs to be written to. But again, I wanted to produce something that came solely from me as an honor to him.
Talk about writing, both the first book and the second book. Is this something you do like every morning? You get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and write for 2 hours, or how do you find time to do the writing?
It just, you know, just happens. Like, to give you an example, me and my homeboy, we were talking, this was about a month ago. He had shared some information with me about what was happening to youth over in Asia. You know, I think to be quite honest, it was Japan or maybe China, one of the two, a country in Asia, right? But he was talking about what was going on over there, and it sparked so many ideas. And I just started writing, and before I knew it, I had 5 pages that I had written down. And so, you know, I think there's times in my life where, you know, ideas come and they keep coming. And so it's like, you know what, this is not the first time that I've had this idea or this thought. I might want to put it on paper. And so that's what I do.
Out of all the stuff you do you have a favorite thing you do? You know, I'm hearing within a couple minutes here, I'm hearing you write, you run programs, you teach, you motivate. Is there a favorite thing you like doing?
I think more than anything, inspire and motivate. Like you said, I want to make sure that people know that, you know, despite anything that's happening in this world, as long as you believe in yourself, as long as you put in the work, and as long as you have a positive mindset and attitude, you can accomplish anything. And so for me, it's being able to spread the love that I have inside of me and just letting that light shine, you know, as much as I can, allowing people to see that, you know, I'm not perfect, I make mistakes, but even in that, you can still be proud and you can still let your light shine so other people can see it. And even on their, you know, day that might be either gloomy or not so bright, they can see that and get motivation or inspiration from that.
Back when you were in Nashville High School, I guess your goal then was to become a professional athlete?
Exactly. I mean, you know, I always wanted to be a doctor, but once I got to school, that's why I did sports medicine. I didn't have the patience to go to school for that long. But you know, doctor was always cool to me. But my main priority, my main dream was playing in NBA.
And so when you lost that dream, did you find something else right after to replace it, or it was a gradual thing?
I'll be honest with you, my friend. I think that's again a part of the glory that has been bestowed upon me, because again, you know, it was never. I never had. I think the last time I even was thinking about, at least seriously thinking about playing pro basketball, I was 27 years old, and I was on my way to Australia, and the contract didn't go through the way it was supposed to go through, and they told me not to come. To be quite honest, what they wanted was to have players from the United States garner more money when they go overseas.
Right.
And so it's like, we're not going to pay a person, we're going to keep that money and pay for somebody that's an in-home Australian person, right? And so I started thinking at that time, you know, the NBA is not knocking down my door. What am I going to do? But I still also had it in my mind that I was still going to play in the NBA. Like, you know what? I just got to get in shape. I got to, you know, but then gradually I started getting, so it was kind of like, while one is ending, I had the other one beginning. And so it wasn't like I was flailing. It wasn't like, okay, I haven't played basketball in 3 years. What am I going to do now? It was more of, basketball is winding down while this other part of your career is starting to take off and you're starting to grow and learn. And so it was basically a very, very smooth, non-noticeable transition, if that makes sense.
Where do you see My Daddy Taught Me going?
To be quite honest, my friend, I would love to see it go national. From the standpoint of, working with the youth and the population of youth that I work with, it's needed. I mean, it's needed around the state, it's needed around the country. So to really see it, have a national presence, I think that would be the ultimate dream. But ultimately, I would love to see, again, the program do the national thing, but to see the youth benefit from it. I see some of our youth here, the D'Angelos, the Bates, the DeQuandre Bates, the Andrew Skinners, the Trayvonte McGahees, those guys are just some of the few who are just making tremendous strides in their community, and who are doing some really, really awesome things. And they're homegrown from My Daddy Taught Me That, and we're responsible for a lot of the things that they're doing. And so these kids have clothing lines, they're in college, 3 of them are working for actual city schools, as teachers assistants. And these are young men, 22, 20, 19, so, and these guys have grown up in the program. And so seeing these things, seeing these young men transform and find their own niche and find their own way, but then also inspiring and leading, the younger generation, you can't ask for anything more than that. It's almost like you took a seed, you watered it, you saw it grow, but the mindset is when you're standing, you reach back and you pull the other ones up too. So that's what they're doing, and it's been amazing to see and a true blessing.
And let's talk a little bit about then, if folks want to find out more, the first bet, if you can hold the book again, is folks should maybe get a copy of this book, read about your life. My Daddy Taught Me That.
My Daddy Taught Me That. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's available, the author's name, and they can available through Amazon or other places as well. And in addition, if folks want to find out about My Daddy Taught Me That, the program, what's the best bet to find out?
So there's a number of ways. So first, you can go directly to our website, www.mydaddytaughtmethat.org. Okay. We're on Facebook. We have a My Daddy Taught Me That page on Facebook. You can also follow me on Facebook. My name is Keynon Lake. You can follow my Facebook page because 90% of what I post on my page is what's posted on the Facebook page. We also have a LinkedIn, and we have an Instagram. So if you just type in My Daddy Taught Me That on any of those platforms, you'll be able to find us, or you can type in my name, Keynon, last name is Lake, and you can find us as well on all those platforms as well.
And if folks want to get involved in supporting some of the good stuff you do, they can go to the website. I guess there are a couple of different ways. One, I guess it's nonprofit. They can make a donation if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's
exactly right. So one of the things that we're going to be really needing in the next couple of months, we have acquired a space, a building, but the building's going to need a little bit of work. And so we're going to have to do a capital campaign fund to raise money to get, the building is it's a blessing to have it, but we're going to have to renovate it. We're going to have to put a roof on it. We're going to have to do a lot of things. And so, being a grassroots nonprofit, those things cost and things that we just don't have. And so if anybody has skills, talents, we're in-kind donations are always welcome and wanted. Of course, donations are always welcome and wanted. If you go to the website, we do have a donation button that you can click and donate. But again, what I tell folks is if you really want to know what we're doing, come to the program, come meet our youth, come sit with them, talk with them, get to know them. You don't have to be screened to come into the program as far as having a background check, because we're not asking you to do anything that's not going to be supervised, right? But we do welcome community to come in and see what we do and just to have relationships with our youth.
And that was a final question I was going to ask you, Keynon. If folks want to get involved, you mentioned to go to the website. Do you also take volunteers, or do you look at volunteers to help out?
We do take volunteers. Again, we have several volunteers, and the volunteers are almost just like the kids. Once they come, they don't leave. We have a 74-year-old doctor who's been with our program for 3 years now. His name is Dr. Morgan. He was a doctor in the DC area, graduated from Harvard. And again, even in the midst of the pandemic, when all of the elderly were staying at home, he didn't miss a beat. He's been coming, again, faithfully and religiously for the last 3 years. We have several volunteers like that who, again, they come, they want to see what it's about. They'll say, okay, I'm gonna come for the next month or the next 2 months. And before you know it, they've been there for the last year or last 2 years.
Well, it's amazing. You got through the couple of years with the pandemic. That was to be growing this organization during that time, that must have been a challenge as well.
You're exactly right. I mean, when everything shut down, of course, you got kids, and so. But to be quite honest, it just goes to show, again, we were affected the times that the entire country shut down. But as soon as that lifted, we started doing programming again. And, again, we didn't have any outbreaks. We didn't have anything. And so we've been blessed, and we've been, taken care of from that standpoint. But again, the program has really been thriving and growing.
And I'd like to thank you, Keynon Lake, with my daddy taught me that program, for being my guest on today's Blaine's World podcast. I'd also like to remind you that Blaine's World's mission is to provide a place for people to just talk about the good stuff they're doing. And you certainly are doing a lot of good stuff. Thank you for all that you do. Thanks also to Cappy Tassetti, my producer. I look forward to having you join me each week on the Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, blainesworld.net. You'll find us, look for us. Keynon, I want to sign off, but if we get lucky, stay with me 1 second after I sign off. Okay, so
sounds like a plan.
Again, nice meeting you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.